crime, right? That's in fact the title of a book by somebody named John Lott, who has been the sort of icon of the intellectual pro-gun movement, whose theories have been shot down from time to time. In fact, today, or yesterday, Glenn Kessler, maybe it was today, in the Washington Post, the fact checker, gave the theory a 3 Pinocchios. But what sort of reaction have you gotten to your piece?
Well, you know, we hear that the usual suspects come out with the same old arguments. They try to point to these same cases, which I debunked very clearly today in a piece up on Mother Jones, looking at these 5 cases they cite. 2 of them are school shootings that happened in the 90s, where teachers or administrators subdued the teenage shooters with guns, but they both appeared to happen well after the shooting had stopped. So it's just not clear that there is no clear evidence that a school teacher or administrator would actually be able to act effectively in the moment of a shooting like this.
So we're looking obviously a lot at what the federal government can do. The state governments have been acting as well. A lot of crazy stuff coming through, as we've talked about.
Now, Jennifer Granholm and the war room, in which there's no war going on in her room. She lives in a peaceful neighborhood. You know, there's no doomsday preppers next to her. These people live with a silver spoon in their mouth, and there's some things that I don't understand her at all. She has, yeah, of course, the ideas that Newt Gingrich came up with, and of course, governor from Virginia, are ridiculous arming, you know, but living in a tough area where I've lived in, you know, the McKinley Tech, a school that I went to, of course, had metal detectors. You see how serious 9/11 turned everything. All of a sudden, everything had a metal detector. You know, you go to an airport, and they're on top of you. What she seems to not understand is that there are so many guns in the United States, I mean in the world generally. There's enough guns in the world to arm everyone with at least 2 weapons. Kids, grandmothers, wives, husbands, sons, daughters. There's enough weapons.
Why do we have that? We have it because people
just want to hear.
Thought it was important. Why can't we have reasonable controls? Do you think that your pieces will hopefully push Congress at least to act?
That would be the great,
purpose,
right? I mean, you use the word reasonable and sensible. I think this points to a key thing about this whole issue. The NRA has been incredibly successful for many years at causing political stalemate on this issue. They've made it politically dangerous to even discuss reasonable gun control because they turn everything into a referendum on the Constitution and an attack on Americanism, on patriotism. So,
but it's too, because the Constitution is, you know, that law is one of the laws of the United States, that you can't change that we have the freedom to bear arms, and it says that. That's like changing a phrase in the Bible. And people don't seem to understand that there are that many weapons in the United States. Just keep in mind that it's not the AR-15 or the AK that you're throwing. It's the automatic weapon. It is the automatic weapon that you fire. The bullet is what goes through walls. It could be a 22, a 9mm, or a 380. I wish that somebody would show that it doesn't matter. You know, you have 10 rounds. You know, back in the Holocaust, the Germans would stand, you know, the people they were gonna kill, in a line of maybe 5 to 10 people, and then fire 1 round to see how many people 1 round could kill, and it would go to like 3 or 4 people with 1 bullet. All right, guy comes into a school with 2 pistols. He has 20 rounds, all right? And why I say 20 rounds, because in the state of Maryland, you can only carry about 10 rounds per gun, all right? When they changed the law for the criminal, because the criminal would walk in with, you know, 30, 40 rounds, then they changed it for the civilian, and the civilian can only have 10 rounds. Not understanding that, you know, when the criminal comes, he doesn't care about what the law is. The law is there for him to break. That's what he does. He breaks it. That's what the criminal does. I don't think that Jennifer understands that. I don't think that she understands that, because they live in, you know, in the beautiful areas where they don't have to deal with that, and they got you know, security driving around. I'm not here. If I had a meeting with a group of people, you know, there's no way that I can sit there and pick the group like a jury would. You know, I can't do that. I'm not in that position. I want to talk to everybody, from the person who's never committed a crime to the murderer, to the killer, to the you know, crooked cop, to the realist, to the Republican, to the Democrat. I want to speak to everybody so that I can hear everybody's point of view. You know, because there are people in this country that, you know, still, it's ridiculous to me, but still, you know, if you're a white person, you've never seen a black person, where have you been? Or vice versa. It's ridiculous. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss
the solution to gun
nothing.
violence requires separating the good ideas
Eleanor
from
Roosevelt.
bad ideas. Good ideas
All right.
draw support from everyone, regardless of politics. Back in 1994, Ronald Reagan, icon, of course, of the right,
Reagan,
been out of office at that time for 6 years, persuaded 2 members of Congress to vote for the assault weapon ban. Now, he did so because it was a good idea. The ban passed by exactly 2 votes. Today, Nancy Pelosi named Democratic Representative Mike Thompson to lead the new gun violence task force. And in a statement, Thompson said that he is, quote, a gun owner, a hunter, former co-chair of the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, supporter of the Second Amendment, and a combat veteran who carried an assault rifle in Vietnam. Not exactly the resume of a gun control freak, but Thompson knows that gun safety is a good idea, and it's one thing that we cannot allow to fade from public consciousness. In his press conference today, President Obama addressed that very issue.
So many people are making such a big deal in the wrong aspect. Keep in mind that this gentleman who went into the school, I cried. I had tears. I have kids. I have beautiful kids. I have my 4 daughters. I love them to death. I would put my life on the line for them. I know some parents who wouldn't put their life on the line for none of their family members. My family is the most important thing to me. But just keep in mind, his mother was a law-abiding citizen. She bought her firearms after her divorce. She has sons, 1 son with a problem. It's like the freight train that's 50 yards away from crashing into the car, and you cannot do anything about it. I mean, that's, you know, with a freight train, it takes almost a quarter mile to stop a freight train. But it's not as simple as people think. People have the right. There are more people who own assault rifles and hunting rifles, and you know, it's the strange balance that people don't seem to understand between, you know, how many people die a year for drugs and for other killings. Right now, at this very moment, 1,000 people died in the whole world. And then a second later, another 1,000 people died. At the same time, the balance is that 1,000 people were born, and another 1,000 people were born. All these subjects have something to do with our life in general. But let's hear what they have to say.
How do we keep guns out of the hands of mentally unbalanced people? It appears to be a huge challenge in our society, because it does, of course, get into privacy issues and freedom issues and so forth. But I think that, you know, putting this on the table, talking about the mental health part, talking about what cultural influences might send people off in a direction like this, I think it would be a very good process. And what we want to do, of course, is to prevent things like this from happening. And the best way to do that is to consider all the angles. What is it in our culture today that is lending itself to this?
Okay, so you just mentioned, for example, the mental health. Would you be in favor of closing the gun show loophole, which prevents people who may be mentally ill from having a background check?
Yes, I think that is something that we can address, and as you know, on a state level, there's
Now, on that I totally agree. That there should be no reason that you should go to a gun show and be able to pick up a firearm right there and walk out with it. I'm sorry, I just do. I totally understand the waiting period and checking on the background check and wanting to make sure that you're giving it to somebody who's not going to go and kill somebody and they have no felonies or, you know, but
the AR-15, which was used, is not an assault weapon, even though it looks paramilitary and like a big ugly weapon. So part of the discussion has to be is, well, what is an assault weapon? And would the banning or the expansion of assault weapons, the list, will that stop these things from happening as well? And I think we're going to have to look at a lot of data and make sure that we're making progress in the right direction and not just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you an example. You know, I like to mess around with YouTube like everybody else, and last night I put in Mario Warfare. And Mario Brothers, I don't know if this is even related to Mario Brothers, but it was this 10-minute YouTube of a guy walking down the hall just shooting everybody, not at random. It was some pretense of taking over a castle. But those type of cultural exhibits did not exist 30 and 40 years ago. And are we bombarding our children with that? And the reason why that's important is because if we want to examine in its entirety this whole cultural experience, this phenomenon, if you will, should we talk about that? And I understand the First Amendment issues are just as sensitive as the Second Amendment issues, but I think we need to be bold in our conversation and our discussion.
So
that I also agree with.
One,
that
I appreciate what you said about the assault weapons ban, the difficulty of defining.
Although it is kind of crazy because people don't seem to understand that an assault weapon is a fully automatic weapon. And they assault. You know, you have 40, 50 guys, a platoon, a squad, and they're coming at you, assaulting you. But at the same time, it's a hard subject to talk about, to have an understanding. But we also got to remember that this boy had mental problems. But Fort Hood, did the psychologist have a problem? Did the doctor have a mental problem? Virginia Tech, obviously. Colorado, I just don't know. I mean, this guy was going to school to, he was working on the mind. He knew what the mind thought and how to react and how to act like a crazy person is how I feel. That's how I feel when I look at him. But
I think we should examine it, and we will examine it.
How do you stop that? How do you stop that? How do you stop a car from bulldozing into 30, 40 people at a festival? How do you do that? Somebody hits thinks they have it in reverse and they have it in forward, and then they go bulldozing into a store. It's one of those conversations. How do you stop that? And it's not a mistake, because obviously what these people done, they wanted to do. But people who kill, are they all crazy? I mean, a trained soldier who goes to war, is he crazy? Trained to be crazy? Is that what we would say? But I don't think these people who've never lived in a tough area or tough times and seen people. I've seen people get shot. I've seen people get stabbed. I've seen people die in front of me.
What do you think they're going to offer?
You think Jennifer Granholm has seen anybody go through that? No. Makes me understand, what life means when you see something like that. Painful. Don't want to lose anybody. For many years, for almost 16, 17 years, I've carried a weapon at my job. And in those years, I've pulled my weapon 6 times, understanding that if I fire on this person and kill them, Then I have to deal with the father, the brother, the friends. They don't care if this guy came to rob us. They just know that I just killed one of their family members. People don't seem to understand that. They would come into the store and think, oh, you got a gun, you're a big man. No, we had guns around the store. It's just they don't understand that when the robber comes, he comes with the gun already up in your face, already ready to kill you. And I have to go running to go find a gun around the store. The gun is on my side. That's why I always preferred it next to me. But did I want to shoot anybody? No. Everybody who knows me knows that it's a hard thing to think of. But I want to hear what people have to say. DGGFIGHT, you know, because in this life, I mean, they call me Hen Dog, and my website is not that I love to fight dogs. No, I hate that. But it's a dog fight. You know, this what we're talking about is a dog fight, back and forth like two pilots in the sky going at it. And I don't think that people like, you know, Jennifer Granholm and some of these people